Hello ladies, let's get acquainted with our pelvic floor. I think that every woman should know what their pelvic floor is doing. The other reason is that we really need to know what our pelvic floor is doing. Are we holding our pelvic floor tight? Or is it more on the loose side? What is it doing during the day? Are we tightening? Are we bearing down? And then after all, you want to know if this program brought you any results. So how will you know that you're doing it right? And how will you know that the month gave you any results? So we will check our pelvic floor now, and we will check our pelvic floor after the month, and we will see if we're more in touch with the pelvic floor and if we can control it maybe a little better. Okay, so a little bit of theory now, and then we go lie down on the side, and we're gonna touch our pelvic floor. I'm gonna guide you through it, okay? So find something that you can put under your head. But before that, let's do a recap of how the pelvic floor works, okay? So your pelvic floor are basically muscles here around your pelvis. Strictly speaking, there are a couple of muscles that we call pelvic floor, but they're intricately connected with your glutes, with your adductors, with your abs. Your abs would start right here, okay? So don't think of your pelvic bowl. Don't think of it of just this. This is a big mistake. If you reduce the pelvic floor just to this area, you'll have trouble finding the solution to your problem, because it reduces the fact that our pelvic floor is interconnected. So everything that's happening in our hips, it's part of the, you can say, extended pelvic floor, okay? It's very important that we just don't think of this area like, oh yeah, let's just do kegels and contractions. If kegels worked, we wouldn't be here, right? But it doesn't work that way. But just for this purpose of getting touch of this area, I'm going to talk about the true core pelvic floor muscles, okay? So our pelvic floor works with our breathing, with every single breath. Imagine a balloon, okay? So we're gonna inhale, okay? And so this is our chest that fills up with the air. The air pushes down on our organs and pushes down on this, on the pelvic floor muscles, okay? So they have to descend a little bit to accommodate the air. And then with the exhale, air goes out, organs lift up, diaphragm lifts up, contract to push the air out, and so the pelvic floor lifts up a little bit also. So with every single breath, the pelvic floor goes up and down, up and down, up and down, okay? We want to check if that is really the case, if our pelvic floor is working with our breath. If it's not working, it's usually the number one reason why we start to have pelvic floor dysfunction, aside for just being pregnant, because that does a number on the pelvic floor. But it's very subtle, and so it's not like you pull a muscle and suddenly like, oh, it hurts. This is not the case. You will be fine holding our pelvic floor tight until that one moment, and it could be years. For some, it could be months for others. And then we're like, yeah, something's wrong. Like, right now I need to go every 5 minutes. So knowing what your pelvic floor is doing will help you maybe troubleshooting a little more what's going on. Let's say you had that day, like you have to go really frequently and you're leaking like crazy. Then you can go inside yourself and be like, okay, so pelvic floor, what are you doing? What's happening? And maybe you'll you build that awareness and the mindfulness, and you'll be like, oh, okay, I was holding you tight the whole day. I really had a stressful day. And now, like this. Okay, and then it creates all the pressure on the urethra and bladder, and then makes you go all the time. Okay, so let's proceed to the exercise. Or it's not an exercise, sorry, it's not an exercise. It's just checking what your pelvic floor is doing. So take something under your head and lie down. Find your perineum. Find your perineum. So your perineum is between the anus and your vagina. Okay? Anus, vagina. And the space is the perineum. You want to find your sits bones where you sit on. So find your sits bones. And walk your way to the anus, and then a little lower and find the space between the anus and vagina. You may want to like really dig in. Okay, if this is not comfortable, if you have short hands, you can totally do it this way, or in the bath as well, or whatever you feel like. Just, you have to sort of touch yourself. Okay, and now relax and just take a moment to map your body, your breath, your mind. Just so calm down, ground yourself. You can close your eyes. Take a couple of deep breaths. Is your mind racing? How's your breath? Is it more like fast or slow? Is it shallow? How do you feel? Okay, so now you're touching your perineum. You squeeze, like really digging your fingers. And now feel, try to squeeze and lift up from the inside. So squeeze your pelvic floor. Or if you were doing kegels, try to do a kegel. In other words, contract your pelvic floor. And then let go. Contract and let go. Did you feel tightening on the perineum? Did you feel the area lifting up? And when you let go, did you feel it going into your fingers? So a contraction or like a squeeze and lift up should be moving away from your fingers and tightening. And then when you let go, you should feel like it's getting more squishier and the tissue like pushes into your fingers. Okay. And based on this, we can assess or start assessing where you're at with the pelvic floor. So did you feel the tightening? Or did you feel like it wasn't moving? Like it's tight. There's no squish in it. It's just tight. There's no up and down or no up and down. So there could be a couple of things going on. Either if you feel it's squishy, maybe you really have difficulties contracting the pelvic floor. You can have difficulty just getting your brain to do what you want. So contracting, and you may feel like, but I'm doing it. I feel like I'm doing it, but your muscle's not doing anything. So there could be a brain muscle connection interrupted because we haven't been using our pelvic floor, or we're not just used to sending our awareness and our focus down there. So it could be just that. It could be that your muscles are super weak, and then you can contract them. In either case, it's very common, right? It just takes practice. So keep trying this. Just keep trying getting in touch with your pelvic floor for a certain time, and maybe it will get better. You'll build out, develop the awareness. Okay. Another reason why you're not maybe able to, you feel like, but I'm contracting, I'm feeling a little, but not awfully too much, could be when we go back to our pelvis model. The pelvic floor is this black tape. So let's say this black tape is our pelvic floor. This is your pubic bone. This is your sacrum. Okay, so it kind of sits like this. These are your bones. And so frequently, especially after being pregnant, but that's not the only case, our hips get stuck in this external rotation. So imagine you have a baby, just for simplicity's sake. There's a baby here, and so our body needs to accommodate for the weight, and so our hips during pregnancy are like this. Okay, they're splayed. It's called external rotation. Look what's happening with the pelvic floor, with the tape. It's loose. Okay, watch when I close, I do internal rotation, nice and taut. Okay, it has some good tension. Okay, so loose, loosey-goosey, tight. So it totally could be that your hips are stuck this, and so your pelvic floor cannot contract. It cannot contract because the bones are close together, and just this, it's called muscle length relationship. It can't. It needs to be this way, so then you can contract. So there's some tension in it. Do that make sense a little bit? So that is also one reason why kegels don't work, or might not work for everyone. If our hips are stuck in this situation, so therefore we will be doing a lot of internal rotation. There's different ways how we can achieve it. I don't want to talk about now, but like squeezing things between our knees, we'll be squeezing things a lot. Contracting lower abs, transversus abdominis, closes the hips. So we'll be doing that a lot. Okay. That's also a reason when your pelvic floors are like loose, like this, when they get tight, because you'll have this constant feeling like you're falling out, like something's coming out of there, it's loose, and then your pelvic floor, and this is on a subconscious level, your pelvic floor could be tightening just by itself because your brain knows like there's something going on here, it's loose, it's not as tight as I need you to be, so let's get tighter, let's get tighter, let's get tighter, let's get tighter all day long. And then you'll end up with tightness despite of this situation. Okay, so that's like a tightness, and your pelvic floor will be tight on top of being loose and weak. Okay, so it's another layer of compensation. Okay, so do let me know in the Facebook group your findings. Were you able to feel tightening? Were you able to feeling like you can let go? Actually, you can do it like this as well. So I'm pressing my fingers on the perineum and I'm tightening, and I'm feeling around my anus. It's getting tighter and it's lifting away from my fingers. And then I'm let go. Make sure you let go. Letting go is extremely important because there is an epidemic of tight pelvic floors. And it causes the urgency. Sorry, I don't want to say cause, but it contributes to the urgency a lot because everything is squished here, smooshed, and tight. Okay? So letting go is very important, and is also one of the reasons why kegels make people worse, because everybody focuses or thinks of the kegel as a contraction, and nobody thinks it's like, yeah, but you have to let go of the contraction. Pelvic floor muscles are just like any other muscles. So imagine I would be just doing this. Everybody does kegels unless you were taught how to do kegels. Everybody would do like little flicks. and never focus on the letting go. Okay, so they don't do the full range of motion. This would be my full range of motion. Full range of motion for a pelvic floor contraction will be all the way lifting up and using your abs and letting go all the way letting go, like this. Okay, but if you were just told like kegels and that's it, like do kegels and then numbers, so and so many repetitions, then there's a high chance you will be doing this, maybe basically like little flicks. And so I would end up, or my bicep would end up with this range of motion after a certain amount of time, probably with limited range of motion. And the muscle will end up tight. Okay, so now there's one thing, like if my bicep ends up tight, keeping my hand like this all the time. But the difference with the pelvic floor muscles is this is a very limited area. There's like you have a lot of organs here and a lot of muscles around here and ligaments and all the tissue. It's limited space. And so if your muscles bulk up because you were keeping them tight or overusing them, you overdid the kegels, well, they're gonna bulk up. This is a contracted biceps. It's exactly the same with the pelvic floor muscles, okay? They're gonna take up space and they're gonna push on the bladder, and when it fills with urine, it will not be able to expand its volume, so it will not be able to fill all the way, and so you will have to go into slow amounts and more frequently, and you will feel the pressure, because also depending on where these muscles are and which muscles are bulked up, they will also put the pressure down. Okay, so squeezing from the inside and down. All right, so that's why I'm not a fan of kegels, because everybody would be doing this. And it's also very important to let go and focus on just relaxing your pelvic floor. Okay, so those of you who already been diagnosed with hypertonic pelvic floor, you want to focus on the letting go part. On every exercise in the program, you really want to focus on losing the contraction, letting go, contracting a little bit, but more than letting go, making sure you don't have residual tightness. Like residual tightness would be if my biceps stay like this, there will be some residual tightness, or maybe even if it's like relaxed, I would still like feel like it's tightening. Okay, this is really bad. Good. So let me know how it feels, and we move on to some breathing exercises.